Hey, I'm Dean and this is Legacy Voyage. In Season 1, I'm documenting my journey to earning my first 100K net worth as a full-time college student. Join me as I share some of the lessons I learned along the way.
Let's run this thing. Hallelujah. I'm actually being consistent. I wasn't going to do this podcast, but it's on my to-do list and I wanted to knock it out just so we can be consistent. Keep up the habit because that's what it's all about. So I'm walking home right now and recording this podcast. To start off, let's go to the story. This past weekend, your boy went to Paris. Paris. It was very fun, very fun. Actually, I posted the last episode while I was in Paris because I had already recorded it and finished everything. I didn't click post on it. So I posted it while I was in Paris. First of all, the trip was amazing. And when I was out there, I was kind of worried because everyone's talking about Paris. Oh, it's overhyped. The food isn't that good. The Eiffel Tower isn't that sick. And I kind of believed it. I was like, okay, Paris is probably overhyped. Should probably keep my expectations down. And I pull up, literally first train ride, first impressions of Paris. I'm thinking this is like the most American European city ever, dude. So much graffiti, pretty dirty, especially for Europe standards, bro. It is pretty dirty. First impressions were not good. Then as I was walking, I saw the Eiffel Tower from a distance and I was like, bro, that's it? It's barely that tall? Because in my head, I don't know why, but I always thought it was so much taller than it actually is. But it's pretty short. So I'm out there in Paris, I'm meeting up with a couple friends who are all studying abroad, and we meet up and we start talking about plans. Like, what's everyone doing next week or the week after? And then it comes up that someone is going to Morocco, one of my friends. So I'm like, bro, low-key, I might run that because United just started up their Morocco flight again. So I was like, bro, let me run that right quick. And I decided there, okay, you know what? I might pull it to Morocco. And so we go out, we continue about our day, explore Paris a bit more. And while we're all walking around, I say, man, I can't wait to go to Morocco. And then one of my friends, he's like, bro, let's explore Paris first. Let's enjoy Paris first. And that was low-key a big eye-opener for me. Because here I was in Paris thinking about the next trip that I'm going to go on when I haven't even finished up that trip. Long story short, my time in Paris, I absolutely loved it. I was only there for like 2-3 days, but it was phenomenal. The food is great. Crepes are bussin'. The Eiffel Tower, we went back to it later in the nighttime and saw it with the lights on, and it was beautiful. And I think another reason that I loved it so much was because everyone talked about it like it was overhyped. So I went in with very low expectations, and high key, Paris completely blew my expectations out the water. But it was super, super sick. And that story that I just told, it really resonated with me for a while too, because it kind of hit me like a truck, where I'm trying to look forward to the future when I'm not even living in the present. And I think they actually did a study on this, and they found that people are more happy leading up to some event than they are at the actual event itself. Like, people are more happy leading up to the vacation than they are at the actual vacation. So when he said that, I really wanted to at least try to be more present in the moment. Anyways, I'll come back to this part, but a quick update on my weekly intention that I set for last episode, which was to build a relationship with God, which entails praying, which entails reading scriptures, things like that. And I can happily say that I've definitely been doing that. I've definitely been working on that. Still, I want to work on consistency, but for the most part, I'm very happy with the progress that I have made. And I think really honing in on that and focusing on what I want to do has helped a ton. So good updates for the weekly intention. Now back to what I was talking about with Paris and trying to enjoy the moment and slowing down. It's kind of crazy how much that connects with the book I'm reading right now. I'm reading this book called The Elimination of Hurry, written by this pastor, Christian dude from Portland actually, which is kind of crazy because I used to live there. But he wrote this book called The Elimination of Hurry. And the whole premise of the book, honestly I haven't finished it yet, but so far, how I'm understanding it is that the whole premise of the book is that society is filled with hurry. And we're always about go, 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 especially at Northwestern, everything's about go, go, go. And in the book, he's really hitting on how this is really unhealthy and unproductive and just not good. A quote that I really like from the book is where he says, "The problem isn't when you have a lot to do, it's when you have too much to do, and the only way to keep up the quota is to hurry." And the reason I like this is because it connected to another idea he talks about, which is that the answer to this problem of always being in a hurry, the answer is not time. Because I'll just speak for myself. If I were to get back, let's say 10 more hours in a day, I'd probably just fill those 10 hours with random stuff and still have more that I want to do. And in so doing, I would still be in a hurry all the time. which is the argument he's trying to make, is that we're always in a hurry. We always have things to do. We always have things on our plate. And although I haven't gotten to it, I'm assuming that his answer is probably like something related to prioritizing, most likely prioritizing God because he comes from this Christian background. But it's kind of ironic reading this book. I was always talking about never being in a hurry, or not never being in a hurry, trying to not be in a hurry when I'm reading and listening to it on 3x speed. So very ironic, definitely. Kind of a paradox, but maybe that's something that I gotta work on. This reminds me of another story. A couple weeks back, I brought out to my roommate how I always watch everything and listen to everything on 3x speed, because I do. It condenses everything so much faster that I can get more done. But he's like, bro, is that healthy? And that was honestly the first time where I looked at it in a way that it could possibly be negative. Because before that, I always thought 3x speed was this positive thing that was always so much better. Like, it's always better to be going 3x speed. And in fact, I want to go even faster. But now that I'm reading this book, it reminds me of that story and how sometimes, just like how I was in Paris, looking ahead, thinking about my Morocco trip, sometimes it's better to slow down and enjoy the moment and enjoy the Paris trip. I'll probably remember that one for a while. Enjoy Paris. That's what I'll tell myself if I'm ever in a hurry. But speaking about enjoying life, there was another decision that was brought up in my philosophy class, where we talked about absurdity and meaninglessness. And basically how life is absurd and meaningless. There's a story I shared, man, it was a couple podcast episodes back, but it's about the myth of Sisyphus. Sisyphus is basically this dude. He is punished by the gods, and it's just like a Greek story or whatever. But he's punished by the gods, and he has to roll this rock up a hill or up a mountain. And when it gets to the top, then the hill or the rock goes all the way back down to the bottom, and he has to roll it up again. And he's punished to do this forever. And in our class, we talked about how this is kind of, not even kind of, this is exactly an analogy and a metaphor for life. Because if you really think about it, in life, everything I do, it's all gonna go away. Like a million years from now, no one is gonna care about the name Dean Wata. No one is gonna care about anything I did or anyone I loved, and it's not gonna matter. And I should say, this is one way of thinking about the myth of Sisyphus. But this is the way that we talked about in class. And it's kind of absurd how in our lives we treat something like getting a C on an essay, which I did, with so much power. It's like, bro, it doesn't even matter, because nothing matters. Because at the end of the day, you're gonna get to the top of the hill and the rock is just gonna roll down and you're gonna have to do everything all over again. But as is life, or so the story goes. But the reason I bring this up is because to say that living life in this way is absurd presupposes, in my eyes, that life is meaningless and there is no meaning to life, which is definitely one way that some people consider. For example, one of the guys I actually look up to a ton in the business world is Alex Hormozy, and he's a nihilist, meaning he basically thinks the same thing. Life is pretty meaningless, and the meaning that he's found in his life is just making the world a better place, basically. But I think one of the very powerful strengths of religion, and I've talked about this before, one of the very powerful strengths of religion is giving life meaning. Because when life has meaning, it no longer is absurd to worry about life. And moreover, even if you're not from this religious aspect, one thing that I kind of look at is this pragmatic approach to the myth of Sisyphus and his life. Because by all means, he could be like sad and moping around, pointing his finger at the gods and be like, why did you punish me this way? Everything is your fault. Or the way I envision him is being pragmatic and trying to find the value in things. And him being happy in the person that he's becoming as he's pushing this rock up the hill. And the effort that he's putting in, because that is what truly matters. The person he's becoming as he's going through this hard struggle. At least that's the way I approach the myth of Sisyphus. And in this way, I try to find meaning in what others would see as meaningless. That is your Philosophy 101 discussion with Dean for today. But let's move on to the next section, which I believe is L's of the week. What L's have I taken? I think the biggest L? Probably something. It's something related to my health. It would be related to either, actually both, nutrition and sleep. So my diet, I've kind of narrowed it down to the system or the schedule. So now I basically only have 2 meals every day. Both of them are free meals, but they do not have the best protein contents or best macros. So they're pretty, how you say, not very anabolic. But moreover, I usually just binge both of those times. Well, not really the lunch, sometimes the lunch, usually the dinner. When I say binge, maybe binge isn't the right word. Overeat is probably a better way to describe it, because binge is a whole nother monster that I don't think I've done, especially not of this last week. But definitely been overeating, and that's definitely something I'll try to work on. But with sleep, I think it's very interesting, because I woke up this morning after having 9 hours of sleep last night, which is a ton, especially for me, because usually I get 7 hours or whatever. But at 9 hours of sleep last night, I woke up this morning and I was still dead tired. And not even just kind of tired, like moping around. I'm talking about my eyes are red, I got boogers on my eyes, like the whole thing. And I am dead tired. I mean, even now, I'm still pretty tired. So your boy's about to go knock out early tonight. That's definitely another thing, because my circadian rhythm is completely thrashed. I don't know why last trip, coming back from Barcelona, it wasn't hit at all. And actually probably got better. But after this trip, it is thrashed. I think maybe I just didn't sleep enough on this Paris trip. But either way, I want to work on sleep, get that better. That's all for the L's of the week. Moving on to the weekly roundup. Now, there hasn't been much time between this episode and last episode, so weekly roundup isn't too populated, but I did find a quote. And it's from another book that I've been reading by Shane Parrish. He's the guy who runs man, I completely forgot which podcast he runs. He runs a huge podcast that I actually love. I forgot the name of it for some reason. I think it's called oh no, he runs a blog, Farnham Street. The podcast is a different name. I forgot what it's called though. Anyways, he wrote this book pretty recently. I think he published it literally within the last couple months, maybe a couple weeks. And it's just talking about how to think and how thinking is awesome. Thinking better is great. And if you can learn how to think great, then you can do anything. Stuff like that. And a quote that really stood out to me from the book is when he says, "What happens in ordinary moments determines your future." Now, this really stood out to me because of how much it resonated with me, especially in this moment right now. Because it's a very common misconception, honestly, a misconception I still probably have, but thinking that everything is determined in those extraordinary moments where you get your shot. Kind of like Hamilton's like, all I need is that one shot, that shot that'll let me go cut loose, or that one opportunity. When in reality, it's all about the ordinary moments that built up to Alexander Hamilton getting that one shot. And even more than that, in this book, Shane, he talks about how everyone's like, oh yeah, if I can only marry that one person, or if I can only start that one business, or do this one thing that'll change the trajectory of my life. But then what? Because playing it out, like, okay, for sure. Let's say today, right now, I somehow discover the dream woman. I'm like, okay, this is the one. And she's like, checks all the boxes, does all the things, like, oh my goodness, this is the one. But then what? Because it's likely that I haven't been consistent enough in those ordinary moments to be the person that I need to be for that. Or even with the business, let's say I have this amazing business idea and this amazing co-founder comes into my life and we start building this thing and it's like, it takes off in an instant. But then what? Because I haven't built up my ordinary moment muscle. Maybe that's what I'll call it. It's the things that we do in those ordinary moments. And I've definitely seen this in health. It's all determined in those ordinary moments when no one's looking and it's just you at the table and you got to decide what you're gonna do. But that's it for the weekly roundup. Just that one quote from the book. Moving on to the life updates. I'll go through this one pretty quickly because I don't think there's much to update on since last episode. But update on my God, like I mentioned, trying to build up that relationship, be more consistent, things like that. And also trying to surround myself with other people who are also trying to do that, build their relationship with God. I think it's probably something I underrated before. Like I didn't value that enough. And so now, actually moving forward, I'll try to work on that, try to value that more. Update on myself. Definitely, I really want to get my sleep locked in better, which is honestly pretty simple. All it is working on sleeping earlier and my sleep routine. So work on that. Should be chill. Update on my people. I mean, it's good. Just came back from a trip from Paris with the squad, some friends I met out here in Northwestern. That's it up, and that's actually kind of crazy thinking about here we are in our somethings, just roaming around, strolling through Paris, and thinking about the possibilities that will happen like 20, 50 years from now. That's a bit too long. Let's say 5 or 10 years from now, we're all like deep into our careers and doing really cool stuff. But last but not least, update on my work. Drum roll, please. I did not get the private equity thing in Utah, which is kind of a bummer, but not really, because this means opportunities are still open for working at a startup. But continue to work with the YC startup roundabout. And really, even today, not sure what to do with We Are Nesian, whether I'll get that thing back up and running and focused on again, or Or not. We shall see. But I think for the most part, that is everything. I'm just happy I did this thing, even though there wasn't too much to riff on. But that is the wraps. I record these episodes completely free to share success with everyone. So the only thing I ask is that if you learned anything or found something interesting in this episode, just leave a review and share it with a friend. Only takes 5 seconds and it would mean the world. Thanks, and I'll see you in the next episode. Tatok, see you.